Now the first definition is what is meant here, but there are other kinds of death. So death is termination, cutting off. In other words, the Arahant's termination of suffering of the wrong is not intended here, because when an Arahant dies, he dies, and then there is no more rebirth for him. So that kind of death is not meant here. Nor is momentary death. That means at every moment there is death, because there is one moment of thought and then it dies, and then another moment of thought, and so on. So we are dying and being reborn every moment. That kind of death is called momentary death, the momentary dissolution of formations. Nor the death of conventional metaphorical usage in such expression as the tree is dead, the metal is dead, and so on. In the Visuddhimagga, it said the iron is dead, actually, not metal. Iron is dead. Now, there is some kind of alchemy in the West as well as in the East, and these people, what do you call them, alchemists? And these people try to do something to the metal to make them beneficial to people. And so there's a saying in Burmese, if you can kill the iron, you can feed the whole country. I don't know what that means. That means if you can make iron produce something maybe, or there's a saying that if you can kill the iron, then you can turn lead into gold, and you can cure diseases. They try to burn these metals and make them into ashes, and then they mix them with honey and so on, and then treat people. And many people believe that such ashes can treat many kinds of diseases. So when we say the iron is dead or the copper is dead, and we are using conventional usage, so that kind of death is not meant here. So what is meant here as death is just the end of one life. As intended here, it is of two kinds, and that is to say, timely death and untimely death. Timely death comes about with the exhaustion of merit, or with the exhaustion of a lifespan, or with both. Untimely death comes about through karma that interrupts, or that cut off the other life-producing karma. Now, death through exhaustion of merit. That means death through the exhaustion of the force of karma. That means, suppose the lifespan is now 100 years. But a person whose karma cannot give him 100 years may die before he reaches 100 years. So he may die at the age of 50, 40, or even younger. So when he dies in that way, he is said to die through exhaustion of merit, or exhaustion of force of karma. That is why now many people die before they reach to the end of their lifespan. Sometimes people have very strong karma, and the karma could make them live, say, 1,000 years, many hundreds of years. But if they are born at a time when human beings live only 100 years, then they will die at the end of that span. So such death is called death through exhaustion of a lifespan. They may have karma which can make them live more than 100 years, but since they are born in the time when people live only 100 years, they have to die at the age of 100 years. So that kind of death is called exhaustion of a lifespan. The death through exhaustion of both is, say, a person has a karma which can cause him to live 100 years, and he is reborn at a time when people live 100 years, and he dies at the age of 100 years. So that is death through both. And the last one is untimely death. That is mostly tragic death. A term for the death of those whose continuity is interrupted by karma capable of causing them to fall from their place at that very moment, as in the case of Dusimara, Kalaburaja, etc. Or for the death of those whose life's continuity is interrupted by assaults with weapons, etc. due to previous karma. Now, sometimes people do a very heinous offense or crime, killing an arahant or something like that. And such people sometimes die immediately. Here is given Dusimara. So he tried to kill Sariputta. One day Sariputta shaved his head, and so his head was very smooth and shining. So Dusimara wanted to hit him, and so he hit him on the head. And at that time Sariputta was in jhana, in samapatti. So nothing happened to Sariputta. But because of that bad karma, he died immediately at Dusimara, something like that. And Kalabu Raja means a king who killed a sage who practiced patience. So there's a sage called Khantiwala. He was very famous, and once he came to the city and sat in the garden and in the pleasure grove of the king. And so the king was asleep, and so his queens and concubines went to the hermit to listen to the Dhamma. And when the king woke up, he didn't see his wife, and so he looked around, and then when he reached the hermit, he asked, "What are you?" "No, I'm a hermit." "What do you practice?" "I practice patience." "What is patience?" "Patience means forbearing, whatever people do to you." Then he said, "Let us see your patience." So he called his executioners, and let them first cut off the hands of the sage and ask him, "Are you still patient?" He said, "Patience does not lie in the hands." Then he had the feet cut off, and he asked him again, and he said, I'm not angry with you, I'm not upset. Patience is here." So he kicked him, and he went away. So when the king went away, the general heard about that, and so he rushed to the sage, to the hermit, and asked him to be angry with the king. So he said, "Please be angry with the king, because if you get angry with the king, he will suffer less." But the sage said, "People like me do not get angry. Let him live long," or something like that. But because of that offense, he was swallowed by the earth. So he was consumed by the earth. So such death is called untimely death. They have past karma and they have lifespan, but their crime is so bad that they have to die. And sometimes to die in an accident. These are called untimely death.
About if he got angry, his karma would be less. How his action was the same action?
Yeah.
Now, how would his karma be less because somebody got angry?
Yes, but it is like with regard to wholesome acts. It is like sowing seed on a field which is fertile and which is not fertile. So when the person, and also the killing, the effect or result of killing differs with the person, with the being who is killed. So if the person killed is virtuous, then there is more akusala. And if the person, being killed is larger, then there is more akusala and so on. There are variations in degree of offense with regard to the virtue of the person being killed, and also whether there is more effort needed to kill. See, to kill an ant and to kill an elephant are not the same. I mean, they do not have the same degree of akusala or unwholesomeness, because to kill an elephant you have to make much effort. So the more effort there is, the more akusala.
So what you're saying is then the general is misunderstood about this thing that person.
No, the general did not misunderstand him, but the general wanted to make the offense less damaging to the king, because if the monk, if the monk gets angry with him, he becomes less virtuous. Yeah.
But it's a funny example, because this is a little bit different in Mahayana, but a Mahayana approach might be to be convinced to help the king. He might be angry at him, but that, in a sense, is a play on virtue. I mean, because he wants the betterment of the king's punishment not to be so bad, and that's the argument that's being given to him. It's a kind of a funny, virtuous argument. Because he would only be convinced by virtue that to help the king that he'd be angry. It wouldn't be out of anger, out of actual anger. It would be, I don't know. I don't want to get.
But when he gets angry, then he is. It will amount to breaking some vows or something. Say, I will not angry whatever people do to me. So he might have made that vow, and so he kept it until his death. So
another theoretical question. You said something about some people who has the karma to live 1,000 years, and he happens to be living in 100 years. What happened to the 900 years? You have some kind of credit?
I wish we could. No. In order for karma to ripen, to give results, we need different conditions. Sometimes the time of the ripening of the karma, the place of the ripening of the karma, the condition of the ripening of the karma, and so on. So when karma gives results, it depends on these conditions. So when, Mahasi Sayadaw in one of his talks said, I'm afraid that many Burmese people will be reborn in United States. Why? Because they do a lot of meritorious deeds. And so these, especially dana, these meritorious deeds will give them great results. And Burma is a poor country, and so when the karma is able to make him a billionaire, then Burma cannot produce billionaires, something like that. So in order for the karma to give full results, then it needs favorable conditions, favorable effort made by the person, and then time and many things.
So isn't it possible that someone who dies young, can you ever take that as a sign of good karma? I mean, that they have a more favorable rebirth having died young.
But to die young is the result of not so good karma.
Oh.
I mean, not to live long.
Let's say if they kept on, their life was so miserable. Someone who's born in the ghetto or something, and there's no chance they're ever going to come in contact with the Dharma or something.
Yeah.
And they die young, so they would have a better chance in another environment. Or is it always a sign that it's bad karma?
Not bad karma, but people are born as human beings as a result of wholesome karma, let us call it, wholesome karma. But this wholesome karma has different capability, different ability, different power. So some karma can give him only, say, 10 years. Some wholesome karma can give only 10 years. Then the other karma may be able to give him 20 years, 30 years, and so on. So whenever a person is reborn as a human being, he is said to be reborn as a result of good karma. But that good karma may be able to give him only 10 years, 20 years, and so on. So that person dies not as a result of bad karma, but as a result of good karma, which is not good enough to make him live longer.
So in other words, then children that die young then don't have as much good karma as someone that's lived to 85 or 90.
Right, yeah. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Then recollection on death, I think they're not so difficult. How to reflect on death in different ways. Paragraph 7. When some exercise it merely in this way, that means death will take place, death will come, say I will die one day or something like that. Their hindrances get suppressed, their mindfulness becomes established with death as its object, and the meditation subject reaches access. Those are gifted people. But if one finds that it does not get so far, should do his recollection of death in 8 ways, and that is as having the appearance of a murderer, as the ruin of success. Here, ruin of not the ruin of success, but success and failure. And 3, by comparison. 4, as to sharing the body with many. That means we have to share our body with other worms or insects or germs and all these things. Something like that. And then as to the frailty of life, as signless, as to the limitedness of the extent, and as to the shortness of the moment. So we can reflect on that in different ways. And at the end, towards the end of the recollection, there's a long footnote discussing Panyati. I think we'll discuss it next week. But here today, let me see. There are many examples given in this, and we cannot go to every reference, because on page 250 there are many references given. Footnote 6, say Mahasamada, Mandatu, Mahasudasana, Damhanemi, Nimi, Jyotika, Jatila, Oga, and so on. And then, some of these persons mentioned in these pages are found mostly in Jataka tales and also in other sutras. And then paragraph 19, Vasudeva, Baladeva and so on. Mostly they are taken from Hindu books actually. In the Mahabharata, these names appear. And so there is some kind of, what to call it, some kind of relationship between Hindu stories and Buddhist stories. Some Hindu stories are told as Buddhist stories in the Jatakas. So these persons, Vasudeva, Baladeva, Bhimasena, Yudhishthira and Chanura and so on, they are mentioned in one of the Jatakas also, but I think they originally came from the Hindu sources. In the Mahabharata there are five brothers and who later fought against among themselves and so on. But the main point here is such persons who are of great merit, who are of great strength, who possess supernormal powers. Even the Buddha had to die, and so there is no point of saying we will not die. So comparing ourselves with these persons, we can reflect on that. So that will come to us one day. And this recollection also has to be done with wisdom, done with understanding. Otherwise, let me see, if he exercises his, paragraph 5, if he exercises his attention unwisely in recollecting the possible death of an agreeable person, sorrow arises, as in a mother on recollecting the death of a beloved child she bore. And gladness arises in recollecting the death of a disagreeable person, as an enemy on recollecting the death of their enemies. And no sense of urgency arises on recollecting the death of a neutral people, as happens in a corpse burner on seeing a dead body. And anxiety arises on recollecting one's own death, as happens in a timid person on seeing a murderer with a poised dagger. In all that there is neither mindfulness or sense of urgency nor knowledge. So he should look here and there at beings that have been killed or have died, and avert to the death of beings already dead but formerly seen, enjoying good things, doing so with mindfulness, with a sense of urgency and with knowledge, after which he can exercise his attention in the way beginning that will take place. So when you practice this kind of meditation, you have to be very careful. And it is amazing that thinking of death makes you less afraid of death. And also the recollection on death can reduce to a very great degree your pride or attachment. You may have experienced something like, say, you are very sick or very ill, and you thought you are going to die. In that case, you don't have any attachment, or you don't have any, say, anger or whatever. You don't have any pride in yourself. You are very, very, what do you call that? Not proud, very humble, right? And you are like an arhat at that time, because you don't want anything. You are not attached to anything at that time. So recollection on that is a very good weapon in what we call fighting against attachment, hatred, pride, and others. And when that really comes, say, you'll be able to face it with more calmness than those who do not practice this kind of meditation. That is why Buddha said monks must practice every day. Recollection of the Buddha, loving kindness meditation, and foulness of the body meditation, and his meditation.
What were those again?
Recollection of the Buddha, loving kindness, foulness of the body meditation, and recollection of death. One thing I want to say is paragraph 35. As to the limitedness of the extent of human life is short now. One who lives long lives 100 years, more or less. But what Buddha meant here is, one who lives long lives 100 years, or a little more, not more or less, or a little more. That means he may live to be 120 years, 150 years, 160 years, so on. Not more or less. So, one who lives long lives 100 years, or a little more. But then there are two sentences like that. Okay, I think that's all. So we will discuss Panyati next week, and then go to mindfulness of the body, go into the chapter, the section on mindfulness of the body, up to page 270, not many pages.